Have you ever stood outside for just a few minutes and felt as if your lungs were freezing solid? Not in a disaster movie. Not in the Arctic. But in a real city. Where people are born, grow up, fall in love, go to school, and go to work every single day, under temperatures that can drop below -50 degrees Celsius. A place where your breath freezes in front of your face. Metal can stick to bare skin. And one small mistake outside can mean you never make it home. When Americans think about Russia, we often picture familiar images: power, mystery, harshness, a people seemingly forged by suffering. But we rarely ask a much simpler question: what is it actually like to live in a place so cold that nature itself seems to reject human existence? Not surviving for a few days, but living an entire lifetime. Imagine your morning starting not with choosing coffee or tea, but with deciding whether it is safe enough to step outside at all. Imagine never fully turning off your car engine in winter, because if you do, it may never start again. Imagine water not flowing from the tap, not because of a power outage, but because water itself cannot exist in liquid form. Here, cold is not just weather, it is a governing force. There are stories that circulate across the internet, rumors that spark both curiosity and disbelief, that people in this place must do extreme things just to stay warm, that life is so distorted that familiar norms no longer apply. But what is true? And what is simply the imagination of those who have never been there? What makes this story frightening is not the numbers. -40 or -50 degrees are just markings on a thermometer. What is truly frightening is that people are forced to redesign their entire lives just to exist. Homes are built like fortresses against nature. Daily routines are compressed into narrow windows between waves of biting cold. Communities are bound together not by ideals, but by necessity, because without helping one another, survival is impossible. And it is in this harsh place that a larger question begins to emerge. What makes people stay? What makes them choose to remain? To love, to raise families, and to call this place home, when the world beyond is far warmer? Is human endurance greater than we imagine? Or is it that when pushed to the edge, people discover ways of living that comfortable societies never need to learn? In the minutes ahead, you will not hear a fairy tale, nor a sensational rumor. You will step into a very real slice of life in the coldest places where humans still live. And when the story ends, you may look back at your warm, familiar life with an entirely different perspective. If you look at Russia from above, the first thing you notice is not cities or borders, but emptiness. A vast space stretching from Europe into Asia, where people are so sparse that regions larger than an American state may hold only tens of thousands of residents. In these empty spaces, climate shapes not only the land, but the human mind. In Russia's deep cold regions, an ordinary day does not begin with emotion, but with calculation. Not long-term plans, but simple, practical questions. What is the temperature today? How strong is the wind? Do I need to go outside? And if I do, for how long? Mornings here are quiet. There are no crowded streets filled with rushing people. The cold swallow sound. When the door opens, icy air floods in instantly, reminding you that you are only a temporary guest in this world. People wear layers not for comfort, but to extend safe time. Each layer is a barrier. Each barrier buys you a few more minutes before the body begins to resist. Children go to school in temperatures that many Americans would consider an emergency. Here, it is routine. Schools are designed like fortresses. Enclosed hallways, thick windows, heating systems that never stop running. When temperatures fall too low, classes may be cancelled, but the threshold is far lower than what the outside world considers acceptable. From a young age, children learn to understand their bodies, to know when to push forward and when to stop. This is not cruelty. It is education shaped by a reality that allows no mistakes. Adults begin the day with a different mindset. Going to work is not an emotional choice. It is a duty, to the community and to the survival of the system itself. If you work in energy, transportation, or maintenance, you know that your absence can affect hundreds of others. A heating station shutting down is not just a technical failure. It is a direct threat to life. Markets are one of the few places where social life is clearly felt. But even there, everything follows the rules of cold. Frozen food is not a sign of spoilage, but the natural state. Fish is sold hard as stone. Meat can be left outdoors without refrigeration. Vegetables are expensive, not because they are rare, but because of the cost of transport and preservation in brutal conditions. Shoppers do not choose food only by taste, but by how much energy it can provide. Food here is not just for enjoyment. It is for survival. Meals reflect this philosophy. Many dishes are high in fat and protein, low in quick carbohydrates, not because of trends, but because the body needs fuel to generate heat. Foods that outsiders may find strange are the result of centuries of testing. What helped people survive winter was kept. What did not, disappeared. The local cuisine is a history of survival written in flavor. Then there are rare moments when people choose to challenge the cold, not to prove strength, but to remind themselves that they still control their own bodies. Cold water rituals, plunging into icy lakes, are not reckless acts. They are carefully managed, done in groups, with a clear understanding of limits. To outsiders, these images look shocking. To those within the culture, they are a way to show that fear can be managed, if it is respected. But do not mistake this for romanticizing suffering. No one here loves the cold. No one seeks hardship for its own sake. The cold is simply unavoidable reality, and people, in the most human way possible, learn to live with it, finding moments of normalcy within the abnormal. Evenings are when the outside world nearly disappears. Indoor light becomes more important than ever. Families gather not only out of affection, but because home is the safest place to be. Conversations are quiet, unhurried. When you cannot go outside, you are forced to turn inward, not just into a room, but into your own mind. Perhaps this is why people in places like this develop deeper inner lives, even if they rarely speak about them. In the United States, we often equate freedom with unlimited choice. Here, freedom is defined differently. It is the ability to live well within strict limits, to know clearly what you can and cannot do, and to accept that without resentment. This environment leaves no room for illusion. It forces honesty. That honesty changes how people see life. When every day can be a challenge, small things gain greater meaning. A car starting on the first try, a day without incidents, a hot meal after coming in from the cold. Things that are taken for granted elsewhere become sources of comfort here. From these repeated routines, an identity forms. Not one declared in words, but expressed through behavior. People do not need to say they are strong. Daily life speaks for them. There is no need to boast about endurance. The way life is organized is proof enough. Yet here, a paradox appears. Living in extreme cold teaches discipline, cooperation, and realism. But it also creates invisible pressures. Isolation, prolonged darkness, winters that feel endless. The question becomes not how to survive a single day, but how not to lose yourself in the process, and that is where the next part of the story leads. Because behind the systems, habits, and discipline lie psychological costs that outsiders rarely consider. Things that do not appear on a thermometer, but leave far deeper marks on the human soul. In the United States, we are used to seeing weather as an inconvenience. Snow causes traffic. Storms knock out power for a few days. Heat and cold are mainly issues of comfort. But in Russia's deep freeze, weather is law. It does not ask permission. It does not negotiate. It offers no second chances. Winter temperatures are not only low, they last for months. Not brief cold snaps, but a continuous state of existence. This forces society to organize itself by a completely different logic. Before talking about people, consider living space. Homes in these regions are not built to be beautiful, but to survive. Thick walls, double doors, small windows, interiors compressed to retain heat. In many places, buildings are raised on pillars, lifted off the ground, not to avoid floods, but to prevent melting the permafrost beneath, which holds the land together. One design mistake can cause entire neighborhoods to crack over time. Heating systems are not personal choices. They are collective lifelines. A building without central heating cannot exist. When heating fails, it is not a service call, it is an emergency. In cold capable of killing within hours. Losing heat means everything stops to prioritize a single goal, preventing people from freezing to death. As a result, daily life is compressed. People do not wander aimlessly. They do not gather spontaneously outdoors. Every trip outside has a purpose and a time limit. Going out means knowing exactly where you are going, why, and when you will return. Carelessness has no place here. Children learn early that cold is not a joke. Adults do not need many warnings. The environment itself is a harsh enough teacher. Then there is water, something Americans take for granted. In many deep cold cities, water does not flow continuously from taps. Pipes freeze. Supplying water becomes a complex engineering challenge. In some places, water is delivered on a schedule. In others, people melt ice and snow for use. Bathing is no longer a daily habit, but a planned activity, not due to neglect, but because the energy required to heat water is precious. When you live like this, the idea of comfort changes. Luxury is no longer material. It is stability. A day without breakdowns. A night without heat loss. A week without repairs caused by weather. These are small victories, but they are essential. Transportation tells the same story. Vehicles are not just transport, they are survival tools. Engines must withstand extreme cold. Fuel must be suitable. Many drivers never fully shut off engines during long winter stops. Saving fuel may mean never starting again. Bus stops are enclosed and heated, because standing outside for minutes can be dangerous. But the most important element is not infrastructure. It is people. Living in such conditions forces communities to bond in a deeply practical way. Not slogans of unity, but an unspoken understanding that if one link breaks, the entire system can fail. A neighbor is not just someone next door, but someone who can help when heating fails, when a car will not start, when immediate action is required in life-threatening cold. In the US, we emphasize individual responsibility. In Russia's deep cold, individuality still exists, but within a network of mutual dependence. You can be strong, but you cannot be alone. This environment does not celebrate heroes. It values endurance and discipline. All of this forms the background for a larger question. Before hearing about strange customs or unbelievable habits, you must understand that they are not born from eccentricity. They are born from adaptation. When nature sets the rules, humans either learn to play by them, or leave. And here, a quiet question forms. If life is so harsh, why do millions stay? What binds them to this frozen land? The answer is not found on a thermometer, nor in statistics. It lies in how people find meaning, even when daily existence itself is a test. In Russia's deep cold regions, winter is not only long in time, but long in feeling. Daylight shrinks, sometime to just a few dim hours. Darkness does not arrive like a catastrophe. It stretches quietly, day after day, until it becomes the default setting of life. For Americans accustomed to clear seasonal rhythms, light is almost invisible because it is always there. Here, light is a psychological resource. Mood is measured not only by emotion, but by hours of sunlight. As darkness persists, everything slows. Thoughts grow heavier. Time seems to stretch. Days are no longer marked by events, but by endurance. Isolation is unavoidable. Not everyone can leave, and not everyone wants to. But staying means accepting a smaller world. The same people, the same streets, the same walls. For some, repetition brings safety. For others, it becomes silent pressure. In the US, mental health is often seen as an individual issue. In deep cold regions, it is more collective. When one person struggles, the community feels it, not through words, but through disruptions in fragile routines. Care here is practical. Are you eating? Are you going outside? Are you maintaining rhythm? Simple questions that help keep people standing. Family becomes central. When the outside turns hostile, the inside becomes the final fortress. Warm apartments, soft light, hot meals sustain not just bodies, but minds. Relationships are less expressive, less verbal, but deeply reliable. presence itself is commitment. Outsiders often assume people in harsh places seek unhealthy escapes. Reality is more complex. Some cannot endure the pressure, but others create small rituals to stay balanced. Simple gatherings, indoor activities, holidays cherished because they confirm that time is still moving forward. Culture reflects this. Music, stories, quiet gatherings act as pressure valves. Fear is not denied. It is managed. This is not heroism. It is psychological adaptation. Control matters. Keeping homes orderly, maintaining schedules, preserving habits. These small acts give a sense of agency in a world that cannot be controlled. Discipline here is not for success, it is for survival. Not everyone makes it through unscarred. Some winters leave deep marks. Some leave and never return. Others stay, carrying invisible fractures. That is why spring, however brief, feels almost sacred. Light returns. Ice melts, not only outside, but inside the mind. Laughter becomes more frequent. Plans are spoken aloud. Even knowing winter will return. Hope here is not blind optimism. It is acceptance. Things will be harsh again. But you have survived before. This part of the story is not meant to be bleak. It reveals the true cost of living at human limits. Those who manage do so not because they are stronger, but because they have learned to organize life and mind around an unforgiving reality. And here, another question emerges. What happens when the cold, the darkness, the isolation begin to change? When climate shifts, when old infrastructure fails, when new generations grow up with different expectations. Change in Russia's deep cold does not arrive with explosions, but with subtle signs. Permafrost, once solid, becomes unstable. Cracks appear. Roads sink. For outsiders, technical issues. For locals, warnings that foundations are shifting. Warmer temperatures sound good, but here they create paradox. Systems built on constant cold become unpredictable. Frozen ground that once held firm begins to move. Stability gives weight to uncertainty. Younger generations see alternatives. They know warmer, easier places exist. The question shifts from survival to worth. Is staying worth it? This creates quiet tension. Elders see departure as loss. Youth see staying as confusion. Both are right. Economies face similar strain. Traditional industries remain vital, but grow more expensive and complex. New industries struggle to take root. Sustainability becomes the real question. Identity, too, is challenged. When endurance is no longer central, what binds people together? Yet history shows remarkable adaptability. These communities have built on permafrost. They have survived impossibility. That ability remains. Some experiment with new designs, flexible foundations, diverse energy systems, programs to keep youth connected without forcing departure. Small steps, fragile but meaningful. Individually, people redefine place. Staying or leaving is no longer absolute. Identity becomes portable. There is no clear conclusion. These regions stand at a crossroads, between proven ways and uncertain futures, between endurance and transformation. The lesson extends beyond Russia. As societies face new limits, climate, energy, disruption, the experience of those long accustomed to constraint becomes relevant. Progress is not always about removing limits. Sometimes it is learning to live better within them. Those who have lived in deep cold rarely speak in grand terms. Success is simple. The heat worked. Everyone came home. Nothing broke. For Americans used to measuring success by growth, this may sound strange, but it asks a hard question. When the familiar disappears, how will we define success? This story does not glorify hardship. It shows a human capacity to adapt, connect, and find meaning when conditions are no longer favorable. You may never face -50 degrees, but you may face other limits. When that happens, remember this simple truth. Humans are strongest not when they have everything, but when they learn how to endure, connect, and create meaning, even at the edge of what is possible. This is not just the story of a frozen land. It is the story of human adaptation. Anywhere the world demands change,